Good day, rodeo fans as well as horsemen everywhere. I'm Bob Tallman, and this is Here's the Scoop, featuring the tenacious trio, the only colt raised at Vessel Stallion Farms in Bonsall, California. That's not a horse. Frank Colt Vessels V. Also, the eloquent, insightful, and better half of the crew, the hardworking cowgirl and pride of Edgewood, New Mexico, Miss Rachel Pozzi. And finally, here's your Springer, Oklahoma native, Sooner-born and Sooner-bred journalist, Penn Little. Take it away, team.
Thank you, Bob Tallman, the voice of rodeo in America, for that wonderful introduction. It's great to hear your voice, and glad we're going to be able to have that voice christen our show every single time we come on the air. And I appreciate the handoff, Mr. Tallman. A salute to you, sir. You are a legend in the sport of rodeo and horsemanship and the Western heritage. We appreciate you being willing to open up our show with your iconic voice. That being said, it's back to another week of Here's the Scoop with Colt Vessels, Rachel Pozzi, and myself, your host and moderator, Penn Little. And this week we have taken a different turn. I know it's been a few weeks since the post-Kentucky Derby premiere of Here's the Scoop. However, that time was spent developing our new show. Moreover, just like our listeners, we do not hide that it's the tight-knit world, and like many of our listeners, we too are in the horse business, as much as the media or the sports side of Western Horsemanship. This week includes 2 episodes. We previously released a trailer of episode 3, which will air later this week, that gives viewers an inside look with co-host Colt Vessels on site at Bobmore Farms, the exclusive yet arguable gold standard, quote-unquote, in race stables, as well as breeding operations for over half a century now. However, while Colt and Rachel have been out on the road, we have been able to learn a great deal, and that begins with this episode where our own Rachel Pozzi, or better half as Bob adequately put it, sat down with what we previously called a quote-unquote mystery guest. We asked listeners and viewers on Facebook to see if they could name the individual and for their family's breeding operation is cultivated, meaning bred or raised. The horses this horseman has ridden and won 20 out of 21 all-breed world championships on. Moreover, they've had one of those horses or more compete in 3 of the 4 timed events at the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo, which includes barrel racing and doesn't include bulldog. Even with the incentive of a $100 Amazon gift card, no one could guess who they were. Well, that's the guest today that Rachel Pozzi interviewed exclusively in his office in his hometown of Stephenville, Texas. He's the man that won multiple AQHA World Championships on the superstar tie-down mare he owned called Pearl. Pearl, whose registered name is Big Smokin Wonder, went on to rate, break out, stop, and allow 5-time tie-down world champion roper and 2001 all-around champion cowboy Cody Ohl to record a record-setting 16 go-rounds won on a single horse at the Wrangler NFR. Of course, just about every tie-down roper in the country who's been to the NFR knows this man. He's a nursery owner, trainer, and breeder of champion horses for nearly a quarter century, and a public servant as a member of Texas House of Representatives for over a decade before becoming Texas's 12th Commissioner of Agriculture on January 2nd, 2015. He served what is nearing 2 total terms in that role and received his party's nomination for a 3rd term this past March and faces attorney Susan Hayes this following November in Texas's general election for Agriculture Commissioner. And it's not just Pearl, but her sister Jewel, and many, many more horses of his champion bloodlines of calf roping horses that have been the half of the very athletic partnership required for tying-down ropers' successes. They've not only earned championships at the shows for Sid Miller, however, 14-time all-around world champion Trevor Brazil, Hunter Heron, and many, many more. I'm going to kick it now to a previously taped episode with Rachel Pozzi interviewing who I'd say is one of the greatest ambassadors Western Horsemanship has that few know about. His modesty is matched with the very big stick he carries and insight he has to give us. So take it away, Rachel.
Okay, so we're here today with Sid Miller for the our next podcast, and Sid Miller is homebred and raised in Stephenville, Texas. From what I understand, you grew up here, you went to school here, you got your degree at Tarleton State,
Yes.
and you've been an amazing advocate for the town, but also the state of Texas for a long time. And
Sure.
you're a household name around here. So just jumping in a little bit about your background before we get into horses, because you're known for the AQHA side of everything, but also as a politician and representative of the town. Give me a little bit of information about kind of what you went to school for, what you studied, and how that kind of turned
Okay.
into your
Sure.
career that you have now as a representative.
Well, I'm a 8th generation farmer and rancher, and my dad was a rancher, and I grew up on the ranch, breaking horses, shoeing horses, and started, rodeoing at an early age. Won my first rodeo when I was in the 2nd grade, with breakaway roping, and I've always been interested in the equine business. So graduated high school at De Leon ISD, went to Cisco Junior College on a rodeo scholarship. Was there when Roy Cooper and T. Woolman and kind of that era. Graduated from Tarleton with a degree in vocational agriculture, and was an ag teacher for 5 years when I got out, and then went into business myself, and I always had stallions and mares, and just sometimes I would get out for a while, but horses have always been part of what I do. I was calf roper, still rope calves, and fortunate to have some good horses over the years.
Absolutely, yeah. And it sounds like we're here. This is the office you work out of, but obviously the facility that we're at here right now, you do a lot of work out of this. You also have, if I understand, you have a local nursery here as well. Is that correct?
That's right. We're in the landscape construction and the wholesale nursery business, and raise cattle, and of course raise horses. This is my personal office. Of course, my main job is I'm the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Texas. It's a statewide elected office, and that office is in Austin at the state capitol.
Okay.
So you have to do a lot of things to make a living if you live in Stephenville.
Yeah, understandable. Absolutely, you gotta kind of have your hands in a lot of different boxes at the same time, and so I just yesterday I had picked up a horse at a vet facility that was getting bred for you and dropped it off at your place, and I got to see a lot of awesome colts you got over there, and when I pulled up and I was on the phone with somebody making sure it's the right place, I said, "Is this it?" He's like, "Is there a bunch of trees there?" I said, "Yeah, it looks like a bunch of young trees. He's growing up." I said, "Well, this guy's doing a bunch of different stuff." He said, "Yeah, he's growing all kinds of stuff. He's got horses over here. So yeah, you're in the right place." So that was kind of funny that I definitely never pulled up somebody's house that's growing basically a nursery in their yard. Plus they're running all these horses. On top of all that, you've been the state agricultural commissioner of Texas, and then that evolved into working on more of a federal level. Is that correct?
It is. I was first a lawmaker, elected in 2000. I served that up through 2013. Ran for this office in 2014. Was sworn in 2015. Been elected twice, running for my 3rd term.
Okay.
As agriculture commissioner, we do all things agriculture. Cows, plows, and sows. We promote agriculture and export markets, and we do a lot of things.
Yeah, and absolutely. It sounds like the background you had, growing up in a town like this, and obviously this town has grown so much in your own lifetime, but it's still a small town in so many respects. And having the background you did with horses and rodeo and stuff like that, it sounds like that's definitely paid in a lot of respects to your perspective of how you can be in this office, in this position, and have perspective on so many different aspects of everything, but also knowing that it's not just about when we say agriculture. I think people really just think of the farming involved. There's so much that has to do with water protection, water rights, and land acquisition, land appropriation, and the use of where we try our interstates. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it.
It is. I actually kind of put it in perspective. I oversee a $6 billion agency, which doesn't mean anything. But if I told you that my budget is larger than the budget of 31 governors,
Yeah.
That's a Texas-sized agency.
Pretty
right?
impressive,
Pretty-
absolutely.
The biggest thing I do, and no one really understands what we do, is I'm responsible for 5 million school meals each day. We run
Wow.
the nutrition programs for the state and federal government.
I had no
We're
idea
the
about that.
Consumer Protection Agency for the state, so
Wow.
I oversee every barcode scanner in the state, every scale,
Wow.
pesticides. We inspect your eggs and vegetables and
You
all
guys
that
are,
all
you
that
guys
kind
are
of
up
stuff.
here, and then it all just has to trickle down
Yeah.
into so much different delegation and oversight you guys have.
It's a broad agency.
About how many I say employees, and I know government agencies vary in the resources with. I say government agencies, both federal and state, federally ran, but in the resources they have, the funding, also the human capital involved. About how big is the human capital involved in the agency you work in?
Well, I get that.
Oversee.
People ask me that, all the time about how many people work at your agency.
Yeah.
And I always tell them about half of them.
Yeah. Half of them are doing something.
Yeah. But now I'll have to put it in perspective for you. So the largest agriculture state is California, and I hate being second to California,
Yeah.
but they have an $80 billion wine industry. We don't have.
Yeah, that's hard.
They don't do the food and nutrition, but so they have about 2,500 employees.
Yeah.
The third largest agriculture state is Florida,
Mhm.
and they do the food and nutrition like we do, and they have a little over 4,500 employees.
Okay.
I think we do it better, more efficient here in Texas, and I have a little over 700 employees.
Okay.
So we do it with a lot less
Absolutely.
employees. Smaller government is kind of our,
Yeah.
what we're known for.
Yeah. Just kind of recent events and stuff like that. And what do you see? I know change agencies, we see a whole new climate of, especially in agricultural industry, EPA oversight in general. We see a new climate every time we see new administration. What do you progressively see as of right now, let's just say for the state of Texas, coming to be a greater concern here very soon for your agency and your oversight that you see as like a red flag that you guys is like, hey, in the next 5 years, 10 years, this is going to be probably our biggest problem that we're going to have to tackle? Is there anything high on your radar right now that you guys have a lot of concerns for?
I spend more of my time, too much of my time, probably 40% of my time, fighting back against an overreaching federal government, over-regulation, just too many hoops to, permits, climate change, sustainability. We're good at that kind of stuff. We were doing that before it was a buzzword.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if I go to New York, a dairy in New York, or an apple orchard in Washington State, or, avocados grown in California, or cotton farmer here in Texas. They all have the same goal.
Yeah.
They say, we want to leave our land in better shape than we found it, to our children and our grandchildren. So we've been about protecting the land and the environment long before it became, in vogue to do so. So you'll never find a better steward of the land than a farmer and rancher.
Absolutely.
It's just that we don't get our message out. We do a very poor job of claiming that, and we let the other side define it for us. And we like to stay home. We don't want to engage. Just let us take care of the cows.
Yeah.
We want to take care of the cows. Get on the tractor and plow 14 hours a day and leave us alone.
Yeah.
So we do a poor job of getting our message out. But there's no one that's a better steward of the land than American farmer or rancher. So right now we have an overreaching federal government, more regulations, more red tape, more compliance with this, that, all the climate change stuff. I believe in climate change. It changes about 4 times a year in Texas. It always adds. That's nothing new.
It's changed in the entirety of the existence of this planet, and we're just a speck on its spectrum.
So anyway, that's the previous administration. I didn't have to fight. We worked with that administration. Yeah. We were, partners. We got the government's foot off our neck and allowed us to run our businesses, the oil and gas industry, farming, ranching. It was good. We won the tariff war with China. The result of that is now some of our best commodity prices we've ever had.
Absolutely. So kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, and changing of administrations and the pressures you guys have, and I definitely can resonate with the in terms of environmental understanding of things, because I graduated from Charleston with my master's degree in environmental science, social policy, and had to have a pretty deep understanding of, the federal government, overarching powers, and not just, you hear that it's not just about environmental regulations, but it's also the policy that goes behind it, what states and people in positions like yourselves can actually do to accommodate, and what's reasonable to accommodate for what the federal government is expecting. And you mentioned sustainability, and that's a huge thing that we focus on, because you're right, it is a catchword. And actually, to this day, there is no globally accepted definition of sustainability. And because of that, it allows the opportunity for every state, every institution, every NGO to take up their own definition. What they say is sustainability. And so if you get a new housing development and they say, oh, we're putting in sustainable, waste systems or sustainable landscaping, I said, well, what's sustainable? And so the metric that is used with that term varies so much. And so when you talk about, sustainability in a place like New York versus Texas, and and I say they, any person wants to say it, and it's a pretty big catch term, and it's pretty interesting, seeing the woes of, climate change policy, and there's so much reaching for straws in a lot of aspects to try to fix a problem. And I'm not going to reach out and define what that problem is or how anyone should believe it or handle it, but one way or another, it's pretty interesting to see how each state has attempted to follow the rules, meet expectations, but then there's a lot of misconceptions about even like carbon policy and stuff like that, and renewable energies, and even when we saw a change of administration from the Obama administration to the Trump administration, in the Obama administration we had like clean coal programs and all the legislation to put in place to expect states to meet all of these measures, and actually more states pushed back for clean energy, or I say clean energy, but clean coal back during the Obama administration, because of the restrictions were so high that they couldn't even produce power for their own states. They couldn't meet the expectations without essentially financially going under, and it has to do with the location too, and the geographical location of each state is built different. The resources are different. The renewable energy resources are different. You can't get water renewable energy in Texas as very well as you can up in the Pacific Northwest. Sure. And then when we saw the change into the Trump administration, I know this being in the field that I was, PRCA was looking here like, oh, he's rolling back EPA and everybody's crying this and that. And I said, actually, the same policies that were instated under Obama, all Trump did was edit just a little bit to make it more accommodating, and more states took it up under the Trump administration. The clean coal, I think I should remember the name of it at this point. Anyways, it ended up being more successful for clean energy under Trump than it did Obama. Yeah. And it's just the lack of understanding of how states can accommodate, and what we measure success and effectiveness in terms of federal policy isn't always what we think it is. And more uptake on a nationwide playing field is more successful than 3 states doing it full-fledged and everybody else saying no. And that's just a interesting thing that made me all think about. And I know being in your position, trying to jump through the hoops is a lot of hoops to jump through.
Well, and sustainability, yes, the definition of that, sustainability was practiced here in Texas and actually in all the Great Plains long before the white man came. Yeah. I mean, the Comanche Indians understood how to take care of the land, and they practiced sustainability, managing the buffalo herds and things like that. And then I said earlier that we don't get our story out. So we get a big, bad rap from certain, groups, environmentalists or greenies, whatever you want to call them, for GMOs. Actually, GMOs have, there's only 4 crops that are GMO. Everybody thinks everything's but it's cotton, corn, soybeans and some rice. But through the use of GMOs, we've done more for the environment than anything. We've been able to go to no-till and minimum till crops. A traditional crop to put in takes 5 gallons of diesel per acre. Through minimum or no-till, we've reduced that to 1 gallon per acre. So we've reduced our fossil fuels 80%. No other industry can claim that. No other industry can claim that. We've reduced our farm chemicals 60% and our commercial fertilizers 40%. And we don't turn the soil over anymore. So every time you turn the soil over, you release hydrocarbons. We're not releasing hydrocarbons anymore.
Yeah.
And when you turn the soil over, you kill the microbes in the soil.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that either. So actually, the advent of GMOs has probably been the single greatest thing that ever happened to the environment. Mm-hmm. But everybody wants to get rid of them,
Yeah.
So I just want to share that because, like I said, agriculture, we don't get our story out. We need to be telling things like that. What is, how we've helped the environment and how we are sustainable. That's, if you want to do something sustainable, go to no-till or minimum till farming. Yeah. And we've increased our yields by doing that too, because we preserve the moisture and, damage to the crops by running over it, etc.
Yeah. I love the conversation about GMOs too, because it kind of goes back to, like, I'm sure you can even remember back a while ago that the concepts around nutrition and the fads that we see in media used to be newspapers and early on television about, have a no-fat diet because fat's bad for you. It's going to kill you and it's bad for your health. And it's like, in reality, fat is so good for your body. and so just seeing those trends and those waves, back when, cigarettes were supposed to be good for you too.
That's right. One time that was the thought.
The thing. It was trendy. I see the same thing happening with, GMOs and so much with food and nutrition. But so let's get into a little bit more about you as a horseman. Okay. And I know you still rope very, very frequently, and you just recently, if I'm not mistaken, was it a breakaway world championship you just won recently?
Last November at the World Show, won my 21st World Championship.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. What horse did you ride?
I was riding Minnie Pearl.
Minnie Pearl?
Yep.
And what's Minnie Pearl's registered name?
Her name is Big Smokin Hawk.
Okay.
She's by Judd Little's famous stallion.
Okay.
Dockle Mr. Hawk, and out of my good mare, Big Smokin Wonder, or better known as Pearl.
Pearl.
Yeah.
Okay. And Minnie Pearl, how old is she?
She's 9 now.
9 now?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you raised her from the ground up, right?
Actually, Judd Little raced.
Judd Little raced.
I sold Judd a flush out of Pearl.
Okay.
He bred her to his stallion, Dockle Mr. Hawk, and they raised and trained the mare, and I bought her from his dispersal sale.
Okay.
And along with another embryo that they flushed out of a full sister to Pearl.
Okay.
So
and
I got her back. She came home.
How did the conversation go? You selling Judd and embryo out of Pearl. How did that whole idea come to fruition to cross those two horses?
Well, it was all totally Judd's ideal. I'd never sold a flush out of any mare. They're still pretty new because this was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. It was still somewhat new, not totally new, but Judd just contacted me and said, "Hey, would you sell a flush out of Pearl?" I said, "Sure, yeah." I said, "Well, what do you want for one?" I didn't know. I just gave him a number. He said, "Okay." So I said, "But here's the deal. I've got a full sister to her named Jewel. I'll just give you one out of her. So get you 2 of them." Because I knew Judd would show them and promote them. Yeah. And I wanted those horses to be in good hands. So it would help get my bloodlines out there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
He was successful and got one out of Pearl and one out of Jewel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that, obviously that cross has done really good. And Minnie Pearl's just coming into her career. And sounds like, your breakaway roping on her. Are you still doing the tie down these days?
Still doing the tie down on her. My son is leading the high point for the year. He ropes amateur tie down.
Okay.
And she's doing very well. I'm leading the year in the breakaway on her.
Cool.
And I think I'm 34th in the tie down in the the select category.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going to the quarter horse shows, I showed for 12 years and know the process of going to horse shows, and it's a whole different deal than rodeo.
Yeah.
It's a lot different deal. How often do you travel and go to these shows, and how many or what associations do you run with? Are there?
Well, it's all changed since COVID. The shows got shut down, and so there for a while, a couple of years, there was no qualifying points. You could just go without having to show your horse, and I didn't like that. Of course, I'm a competitor. I love to compete. So we're back in that mode now where you have to earn your points.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to earn our points to get to the World Show this year, which I like that.
Yeah. So
Minnie Pearl's qualified in the senior division, the select division, and the amateur division. So she'll be shown there, along with a couple of other horses stallions that I have on the show circuit.
Yeah, and tell me about those stallions that you've got going right now.
Well, my bloodline is as big as I am. That's what Minnie Pearl is. That's what Pearl was. She was an own daughter of Big as I Am, which is by Oto's Wonder, by Oto, which is Sugar Bar's line. And so we got that bloodline. I've got an own son of Big as I Am. He's over 20 now. So, and then I have a 13-year-old stallion that's out of my next best mare. That's an own daughter of Big as I Am, and stallion called Playgun.
Okay.
So we got Playgun, Big as I Am cross, and then my third stallion is a baby out of Pearl, be a half brother to Minnie Pearl, and a stallion called Dual Spark.
Okay.
By Jewel Patman out of a Shining Spark mare.
Okay.
And he's a buckskin, and got high hopes for him.
Yeah.
He has a lot of promise.
And what made you, when you crossed Pearl to Dual Spark, what made you choose Dual Spark? For that's a special mare, and you want the best you can get. What made you choose him?
I looked at a lot of stallions. I looked at Rooster and other stallions and Pepta Boone Small and a lot of those. And Pearl she didn't have a lot of size. She was medium bone. She didn't have any weathers.
Yeah.
So I wanted a horse with some weathers to try to, and Jewel Pep certainly had that. He was an outstanding rope horse. I wanted to stay with those rope horse bloodlines. Bobby Lewis on that horse won just about everything they could possibly win on. And eventually sold that horse for a lot of money. That horse stands in Brazil now. Okay. And they've had some other full brothers to that horse that have done quite well. So that's why I chose that horse, because of his athletic ability and his conformation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked a little about Minnie Pearl. Are you the only one, you and your son, correct? Are you guys the only one riding her right now? Or are you planning on sending her with anybody to go pro rodeo? Or are you guys just going to quarter horse shows right now?
Well, we got her seasoned. Taylor Santos helped me season her when I first got her. He took her some small jackpots and ropings, and then this last year, Neil Dove, which is PRCA roper, he hauled her some for me and did good. And so now we've got her leased to Tuff Cooper. Okay. And Tuff's going to haul her some this year. He's got a good horse, so it'll be probably his second horse. But hopefully the goal is to end up at the NFR either this year or next year, once we get her seasoned and get some miles under her. But she's 9 now, so she's old enough to take it, ready to go.
Just in that sweet
We've
spot.
had her at the breeding barn since April. We just got her home yesterday. Okay. And so we're legging her up, getting her back in shape and ready to hit the summer run.
Absolutely. And if I remember the picture of her correctly, she wears the Sid brand and the Raptor JL brand on her. So that's pretty fun to see. And I know it'll be exciting to have Tuff on her and stuff like that. And hopefully it sounds like this is probably going to be towards, moving into summer. This will be her first time really going out and hitting the road.
Right. She'll be full-time on the road this summer. So. And, we'll see how that goes. Might get to see her in the match roping in San Angelo or somewhere probably. Yeah.
And do you want to talk a little bit about the breeding plans that you had with her and kind of what you're doing? And I know you want to kind of get some embryos, it sounds like, and get her on the road and stuff like that. You obviously have high hopes for her. She's at a young age, and it's one of those balancing games of knowing, like, hey, we need to breed this mare and get some embryos on her, and she needs to go prove herself. And then maybe by the time she's everybody's excited and say, hey, oh my gosh, this horse. And you're like, yeah, I've got a baby right here. That's always a fun game. But
I've only owned her a couple of years, and my focus is, get her finished and get her ready to haul, because she's such an athlete. She's just like her mother. Dead ringer for her. If you looked at her, you'd think it's Pearl. The exact same size, same color, same build, same mannerism, same attitude, same run and stop. So I'd put a video of Tough Cooper riding Mini Pearl up, and this guy called me. I'd never met. His name is Penn Little. I thought, who is this? He started talking about that. Said, that's my dad's brand on that mare. I said, yeah, it is. So, long story short, before you know it, we formed a syndicate. It's Penn Little and Colt Vessels and myself, and Penn put the deal together and is carrying the expenses, and Colt is supplying semen from First Down Dash.
Wow!
So we have a three-way partnership. We're hopeful to get a First Down Dash baby. On the ground next spring.
That'll be amazing too. And I know the conversation at First Down Dash is not a lot of people able to read to him anymore. Obviously, it's definitely a selective process, and the best mares are the ones that kind of get the call. And I think that cross and talking about that and developing horses like that, people say, well, this is a rope mare and that's First Down Dash. What's your goal with that?
Yeah.
And so I want to hear a little bit from you. Like, what do you envision with a cross like that?
Well, of course, I want a good horse.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a race horse or plow horse or jumping horse. I just love good horses, period. But the thought is to, this outcross is basically what we're talking about. It's an outcross. Not breeding race horses to race horses. We're breeding an outcross. We're breeding a cow horse to a race horse. So we're hoping to get the best assets of both bloodlines. We want an outstanding rope horse. This horse could possibly be a barrel horse. It might be a track horse. It might be a race horse.
Yeah.
We're going to see what we get, and we'll evaluate the colt as it matures.
Absolutely.
And take the best path for that colt. But it should be an outstanding animal in the performance arena or on the racetrack, because these performance mares like Pearl and Mini Pearl, what makes them so better, one of the assets that puts them above other horses in their performance category is their breakaway speed. And you've got to get out of that box.
Yeah, you've got to fire really hard.
If you're going to win the breakaway, you're going to be tied down, you got to be there stride before anybody else. Yeah. And that's what this mare does.
Yeah.
So with, the top end speed from First Down Dash and the breakaway speed from Mini Pearl, we're going to see what we get.
The bloodlines in both Pearl and Mini Pearl, they are very old, resilient bloodlines. And there's those horses that what made them so successful as rope horses, and in what I do know about what makes good rope horses, and especially barrel horses too, because I personally, I run a mare that she's not bred to be a barrel horse, and she's very foundation and cow blood, and she's wicked good. And the bloodlines like that, they bring in the resiliency for being able to travel and be on a trailer and deal with the nonsense of rodeos and events, and not just physically break down, but mentally break down. And I think the mental resilience is something that is a bit of a lost art anymore. And those older bloodlines, these horses, they have hard work days, and then we develop them into being successful arena horses and having that good breaking speed, just the inherent physical attributes to do the event we're asking them. But I think making a cross like Mini Pearl and First Down Dash, I think you're gonna see something pretty unreal. A lot of substance and power.
Yeah, of course. People forget that Mini Pearl's that Otto bloodline. You talk about that's the foundation. Otto first above anything else was a racehorse, a very successful racehorse, an outstanding racehorse. Yeah. After that, he became a halter horse. He was that good looking. And after that, a performance horse, and he sired a lot of racehorse babies, a lot of performance babies. And so we're not getting completely away from that racing aspect with that foundation bloodline, because those are all proven performance horses.
Yeah.
That whatever their event, they excel in it.
And I think too the way that the quarter horse breed has refined itself so much over time. Is we ultimately it is one breed, but anymore it's like we have subspecies of the same breed of horses, and it's great that you can refine down so far that you can get just, you know, a perfect specimen for what our trend is, or you know, these peak performance that you would say. But, you know, you go back further and you're talking about, you know, Ocho being a racehorse, then he was a halt horse, then he was a performance horse. That, you know, brings into my mind Doc Bar even. You know,
Sure.
Here's a horse that he sired so many cow horses, but they didn't know that. It wasn't the plan.
Right.
You know, and so I think you go back to that baseline of horses that they were all just built right, had the right size and had the right mind. It says, well, let's just go do everything on it. Yeah. And then we just kind of branch from there. And then, you know, going back to those lines and stuff like that, I'm real big on going back to your roots. And I definitely agree in progressing the bloodlines and, you know, having enough outcrosses that you're not overlapping and get to a point where you're having genetic problems because everything is so, you don't hardly have any stallions to breed to anymore because everybody's related. I agree that, you know, it's great to breed to daughters of this and sons of that and get some new blood, but I think that we see a lot more now getting away from the horses that had less tissues.
Well, this vision is Penn Little's vision. He's the one that came to me. He wanted to do some outcrosses and get these cow-bred horses, you know, back on the race horses and see if they can get some diversity back in these bloodlines, which I think is needed, whether it be the cutting horse industry, it needs some diversity. Race horse industry needs some diversity. And a lot of the other disciplines do too.
Yeah, and you say cow horse industry, that's something that pops in my head is, you know, people say cow horses, and I think a lot of times people get their idea of arena cow horses. I'm talking like your modern cutting horses, right, working cow horses. And then some other people categorize cow horses as Sunfrost, which Sunfrost, I mean, gosh, he's got Doc Bar and, you know, Dr. Jack Frost on his papers and stuff like that. So it's like, well, who do you define as cow horse and what do you want as a cow horse? And so for me, when I say cow horse, I think arena cow horses. And when I say foundation, I think of the less pigeonholed, more foundation versatile horses. And that's just my own essence.
Think of cow horse, I think of a horse that's versatile. Mm-hmm. Can do a lot of disciplines, a lot of different events. Yeah. Barrels, team roping, you know, calf roping, can work on the ranch, you cut on them, you know, whatever. I mean, they're just versatile. Yeah. Cow horses, to me, is not a horse that just participates in the cow horse event. Cow. It's a horse that's very versatile and you can be used on the ranch or in the arena for just about any event.
That's great. So yeah, we definitely have the same perspective. We're just calling it something different. That's a perfect testament to my point. So talk about Mini Pearl. Tell me about Pearl. I mean, that mare really put you on the map, and she won a lot. Yeah,
you know. They say the good Lord gives you one good horse, one good dog, one good woman. I've been fortunate to have all three. So I hope he doesn't take me anytime soon. But Pearl was that one once in a lifetime horse. I won the AQHA World on her 3 times, the year end several times. She's PRCA Horse of the Year twice. Yeah. Cody Ohl won 16 go rounds on her. No one's ever won that many go rounds on the same horse. No. Most people don't even win 16 go rounds, period, on multiple horses. So she had over, I kept up with it over the years because I was getting mount money, but over $2 million won in the PRCA on that one mare. She's in the Texas Rodeo Hall of Fame. There in the stockyards in Fort Worth. So she's just a good mare. And she, I rode her myself. I bought her from my brother. My brother raised her. I guess she was 5 or 6, and I rode her until she was about 10 or 11. And then different ones I would mount. You know, Trevor Brazil's rode her. Jeff Chapman won Calgary on her. Cimarron Boardman. Hunter Heron, I mean, they've all rode her. Yeah. But Cody rode her for 6 years. That was his main mount. He won the most of it.
Okay. And it sounds like you just kind of briefly touched on the guys who rode Pearl, but I mean, you've been kind of a namesake in a lot of tie-down ropers' households, and you're the kind of the guy to go to get a good horse. Give me a rundown of some of the guys that you've either helped mount it or sold colts to or directed them in the right direction for a good horse.
Well, we've had horses there at the national finals, and obviously the calf roping, but also the team roping, and also the barrel race.
Yeah.
But I think kind of an interesting trivia fact, there's been 3 full sisters at the national finals. There's been Pearl, and then the bay horse that Tough Cooper rode for 4 or 5 years out there called Topaz. That's a full sister.
Wow.
Pearl. And then the last couple of years, he rode another full sister called Jewel. Those 2 mares looked a lot alike, Topaz and Jewel. But all of those colts were some kind of gem. They were Jewel or Topaz or Ruby or Diamond or Pearl or something like that. So they've been 3 full sisters at the NFR out there.
That's very incredible.
Trevor Brazil had one of the very first one.
Yeah.
And rode her early on before Pearl ever came along.
Wow. Yeah, and it sounds, I know, looking at a list of all the titles that have been won with your horses, it goes on forever, and do you have any colts right now that maybe are or aren't related to Mini Pearl or Pearl that are you coming up that you've got high hopes for? I know you mentioned your stallion, but going over to your house, you got a lot of babies out there. Yeah,
we got lots of young horses, and of course I enjoy my deal is I love picking out the bloodlines. All my brood mares are rope horse bloodlines, and I love picking the right stallion with the right mare, raising those colts, break them. I show them myself. Most people don't do that. Most people go buy a horse that's already trained and show it or compete on it. But I just get the satisfaction out of, running the factory, producing the product, and then actually putting it on the race course myself. So that's kind of my operation. There's not many other people that go from, birth all the way to the show arena or the competitive arena.
Yeah, it takes a lot.
Takes a while.
Having a vertically integrated process in the horse industry is not common, and it's I can definitely resonate with that. It's not easy to be the person who has the studs, who has the brood mares. You're breeding everything, you're raising everything, you're starting them, you're promoting them, and you're trying to. You can't keep everything. Still, it's work to get them into good homes and making sure where they are going is somebody that's going to do right by them. So out of all the things we've touched on with horses, and whether it was you riding a horse or just seeing one of your horses go out and do something, what's probably one of the, and I know it's hard to pick one memory that really sticks with you that just pops in your head every single day that you're like, man, I really remember that experience. I remember seeing that horse do that, or if it was something you did with a horse. What's something, because I'm looking behind you and I've seen this whole time a picture of Cheyenne Frontier Days.
Oh, yeah.
And, you remember runs and you remember watching stuff. So what's something that really resonates with you?
I think the run that I remember most memorable for me, because there's been lots of good runs over here, especially on Pearl, but was the first time that I qualified Pearl, or any horse for that matter, for the World Quarter Horse Show, and went up there and we won it. I remember that winning run. Yeah, winning a world championship. My first time to attend, go to the AQHA World Show. Yeah. So you always remember your first one. Yeah. And I remember that one. And then I remember her first trip to the NFR in 2009. She was already PRCA Horse of the Year. And the thrill and the excitement of seeing a horse that your horse at the NFR, that's pretty thrilling too. I think I got more satisfaction out of watching other people win on my horse than me winning on her, actually. Yeah. I really like watching my son win on her. Yeah. That's the ultimate.
Yeah, it's fun doing it, but at the same time being able to sit back and, sometimes it's nice to just get to sit in the stands, have a beer in your hand and cheer it on.
Oh, yeah.
But
you've got horse there that you raised, and you got a son there that you raised, and you got them together, and to watch them both win is special.
Were there any big rodeos? I know when you send a horse down the road and they're going. Were there any big majors that you got the opportunity to go travel to and sit in the stands and watch, and you made a point to go to that were pretty memorable? You always made a point to go.
That would have to be the NFR.
Yeah,
I didn't travel with my horse. That was the deal I made. They had the first big win that I remember somebody winning on Pearl. Just kind of the first year that I let any of the PRCA guys ride her. Jeff Chapman took her to Calgary and won Calgary.
Yeah, I was thinking about Calgary if you got to go up there.
And I didn't see it. I mean, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I was busy farming and, being a legislator, had a lot of other stuff going on. So, but eventually I went up and I've been to Calgary, got to go up there a couple of years ago and see the rodeo. I'd never been.
Yeah.
But that's pretty good. That's a pretty big win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was great meeting with you today, and this has been an amazing conversation and getting to meet a jack of all trades and somebody who can do it all and has seen it all and has the horses and the politics and is the man for the right job in the right chair. That's definitely for sure. You're a great representative for our industry, and I really appreciate meeting you today.
It's great being with you today.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you do.
And that was an amazing interview by Rachel Pozzi of Mr. Sid Miller, the Commissioner of Agriculture, the multi-time all-breed world champion calf roper, breakaway, and tie-down, a man that speaks softly but carries a big stick, that also gave a pair of spurs that said TRUMP to the President of the United States while sitting in the back of what the limo they call the Beast for its thick windows. I can't think of a better advocate for our world than Sid Miller. And thank you, Commissioner Miller, for your time, your willingness to be honest, your willingness to stick to your guns, your willingness to answer the hard questions, and to be a host to us and allow us to enter your operation, your office, learn of your nursery, and everything you do, from breeding a horse or teaching folks about calf roping along with your family, all the way to advocating for our industry by giving us a pair of spurs of the President of the United States, as well as seeing to it that every child in the state of Texas's school systems gets fed and fed well, and that $65 million of that budget comes from Texas farmers. You are a true public servant. We appreciate, and it's been an honor to have you on our show. And that's a wrap for this episode of Here's the Scoop with Vessels, Little, and Pozzi. We'll catch you next time. Whether it's on the road or in the studio, we've always got real clear Q&A for the best of the best, the most important people, knowledgeable, and who have the information or the scoop in Western Horsemanship. Have a great day.